Hi everybody, welcome to Chapter 7. This is our starting point on Chapter 7 called Absolute Value. And absolute value is a concept where you make everything positive, basically. So if you've heard before the term of money in money situations, in temperature situations, in stock market situations, you don't really say I have negative $20. You say I've lost $20 or I'm at a loss of $20, I'm $20 in debt, those kinds of things. But you don't usually use the word negative 20 when describing money. The same thing of when you're talking about the temperature change. So if you said the temperature changed from plus 10 degrees to minus 2, you don't say that it was a negative 12. You say it went down 12 units, 12 degrees. Okay, so you use words like that, and so you put a positive on it, but you use the wording to help you describe whether it's positive or negative. Well, the same thing here when we're talking about absolute value is basically the distance between something, but we express it as an absolute value, so a positive value. So in this case, it doesn't matter if you're subtracting 2 subtract 6 or 6 subtract 2, they both give you an absolute value of 4. Okay? So you're going to be looking at some symbols in this, and we use these symbols here to express absolute value. So when I say 2 take away 6, or the absolute value of 6 take away 2, even though this ends up with a negative here, because I have the absolute value symbols, and 6 take away 2 is just plain old 4, the distance between 6 and 2 is still just 4 units. It doesn't matter whether it's negative or positive. This 4 units apart is how we describe how far apart they are. Okay? You don't need to describe negative or positive. So this is great about it because it doesn't matter the order of how you decide to subtract, which is great. Okay, so for example, here's where we talk about weather. So the hottest temperature ever recorded in Saskatchewan was 40.6, and the coldest was negative 50. What was the difference in temperature? So it doesn't really matter how you think about it. If you did minus 50 subtract a positive 40.6, you get negative 90.6. If you do it the other way around, put the 40 first, 40.6 subtract a negative. Well, remember about keep switch switch, it's like saying 40.6 plus 50, you still get a numerical value of 90.6 degrees. The numerical value is the same. It's just that the negative and positive is different. So we want a way in math to describe the change in temperature without having to say it was negative 90 degrees apart. Okay? So at this point, you're going to work with a partner on page 359, number 1 to 7. Run through that example about talking about distances apart on a number line. So I've already mentioned a little bit about this, how absolute value is written. We use those two little symbols, the lines going down, to represent that I want to take the positive value of whatever is inside those brackets. So as a summary, what I mentioned is if you're already a positive number, the absolute value stays positive. The absolute value of 0 is still 0. And the absolute value of a negative number is the negative of the negative. So two double negatives, like if you were talking about English, a double negative makes a positive. Negative of negative. Where do we see this in real life? Like I talked about, money owed, the temperature distance, differences, and distance apart. So we start off pretty easy here. Find the absolute value of each of these. So in this one, since we have the symbol, the absolute value symbol, and it's already a positive number, it's 3. B, absolute value of negative 7. What the symbols do is turn it positive. That's all there is to that. Okay? You try one on your own, pause the tape, and try these two. And your answer is questions, you can try some from the book. And we'll keep moving along. Secondly, the next thing you could do is compare and order absolute values. So you'll notice here in this line, there's some that have the symbols and some that don't, the absolute value symbols around them. So remember, when we have the symbols, everything is going to turn positive, but the ones without a symbol, like this one, this negative 3.4 does not have the symbol around it. Neither does this one. So those are going to remain negative. They're not asking for the absolute value of those. So from least to greatest, this is the absolute least, negative 3.4, and then negative 0.01. After that, the rest of them are all absolute values, so they're all turning positive. So this would be 6.5. That one's already 5. This one's already 4.75. This becomes 12 fifths, which is about 2 point something. 2 and 2 fifths, right? 2.4. This becomes just 0.1. That one stays, and this one becomes 2.5. So we can see now which one's the next smallest. And the next smallest one is, okay? And after that, the next one would be negative 12 over 5. The next one is negative 2.5. That's the value of that. The next one is 4.75. The next one is just 5, and the last one is the absolute value of negative 6.5. Okay? You try one. Go to the answer. And you can try some from the book. Move along. Then we get to a little bit more complicated. It's like bed mass was back in the day, although this is with absolute value. So remember, only things that are inside the absolute value brackets change. And when it's in a bracket, you still apply regular bed mass rules. Okay, so in this first problem, we have the absolute value of 4, subtract the absolute value of 6. So the absolute value of 4 is 4. The absolute value of 4 is still 4. That subtraction sign is still there. It's not changing. It's only the value inside the bracket. So since it's a negative 6, the absolute value of negative 6 is 6. So my answer still is negative 2. And I don't put the absolute value of that because I've already done the absolute value. It's not looking for a final answer. It's no longer within brackets. B. So we have 5 subtract 3 times, just treat it like a regular bracket, the absolute value of 2 take away 7. Well, we still use regular bed mass rules. So the first step that would happen is I would do 2 subtract 7, which is negative 5, and it's still within the brackets. As my next step, and I'm showing every single step here, the absolute value of negative 5 is just plain old 5. Now look, I'm changing my type of brackets because I have to apply 3 times 5 is 15. 5 take away 15 is negative 10. And finally, with question C, now this time we have everything inside the absolute value brackets. So, just like bed mass, we do everything in the right order. Keep the brackets until the very end. Okay, now here I should mention about a common error. So many people decide right off the bat just to drop the brackets and turn everything positive. So make that positive 2, make that positive 7. That's not the case. You do the work inside first. and then your final answer will become positive. 5 subtract 7 is negative 2. Keep going, and I'm showing every single step. Negative 2 squared is 4. I still have my brackets. I only change them at the very final step. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Negative 8 plus 6 is negative 2. And now my final answer will be just plain old 2, because they want the absolute value of that answer. Okay? And you can try that one on your own. And there's the answer. So I will do these ones out a little bit for people. So in this one, there's nothing to do inside the bracket, just turns positive. This one turns positive. So 4 take away 3 is 1. In this case, I have to do something inside the bracket first. Negative 12 plus 8 is negative 4, and then the absolute value of that is 4. Okay? Inside here, I need to do some work. 12 times negative 3 is negative 36, plus 5 squared, which is 25. So that would give you negative 11, and then you need to turn it to positive 11. And there's some more from the book to try. And now I'm coming to a story problem type one about the stock market. And many people probably don't know too much about the stock market yet, but the stock market basically is a system where companies can trade their shares on a publicly funded system so that they can raise capital to hopefully do more with their company. Apple, Microsoft, even local ones like Maritime Electric will all do this type of thing. So basically, you can, throughout the month, and most of you have this on your phone where you can check your stocks, and if you look at your iPhone right on the front cover of it would be some stock price, and it changes and fluctuates throughout the day. So they fluctuate a great deal, and especially when the markets are volatile, like in times of trouble. Around the time when Trump was elected, for example, the stocks took quite a hit and then rebounded. So it was up and down quite a bit until they figured out what was going to happen. So here's a particular stock, opened the month at $13.55 and then dropped and increased, closed out the month. What was the total change in the value of the stock? This shows how active the stock was that month. So basically, we're finding the difference between each one. And like I mentioned at the start of this lesson, with absolute value, it doesn't matter if you decide to subtract in what order. You're still going to end up with the same answer. So for example, if we started with $13.55, and then it dropped to $12.70, so the change in that is what I'm looking for. And then, since we're looking for total, I know I have to add. It went from $12.70 to $14.05. So I'm looking for the change, so I'm always subtracting there to find out what the difference is between the prices. And then close the month at $13.85. So you'll notice here, it doesn't matter if I had switched the order of this. If I had put 1270 minus 1355, since I'm getting the absolute value, the change in value is still going to be the same. Okay? So if I'm going from 1355 to 1270, my answer is going to give me that's 85 cents. Over here, 1270 subtract 1405. Again, it doesn't matter that it's negative, or if you put it the other way. Okay? $1.35, and it's negative. That's okay. And over here, it went from 1405 down to 1385. Okay, so that's 20 cents. So how active was this stock? Well, the change when you add them all up, and remember this becomes positive, is going to give me my answer. All right, so we're going to have $1.35 and 20 cents makes $1.55, and then $1.55 and 85 cents. Okay, that's going to leave me with $2 and 40 cents. Okay. All right. So you try this one. The same kind of thing. It's not a stock market, but it's an elevator. Oh, by the way, I want to go back here. If they had asked you about net change is a little bit different. Net change is just how it started from how it finished. So the net change would just be, for example, $13.55 minus, and it closed the month at $13.85. That's a totally different type of question. This is just seeing what it started and ended with, which is not really interesting to stockbrokers because they're more interested in how volatile it was, how much did it change throughout the month. This is just gives you a snapshot of one day. So that's only going to be by 30 cents, right? Okay, and you can try the elevator one. So he's going up and down on the elevator. What is the total change in floors he went to? Okay, he went first floor to the sixth floor, then went down to the second floor, up to the fourth, and down to the fourth. First, to greet visitors and patients. What is the total change in floors for Wesley that day? So we would set this up as first floor to the sixth, so the change there. Then he was up on the sixth then, so 6, take him down to the second. Then he was on the second, and he went up to the fourth. And then he was at the fourth, and down to the first. Okay? So the absolute value here, -5, plus the absolute value of 4, plus the absolute value of -2, plus the absolute value of 3. Oops, 3. So 5 plus 4 plus 2 plus 3, 9, 11, 14 floors. He was up and down 14 floors. Okay, back and forth. And there's your homework for this first section of absolute value. Fairly nice chapter, nothing too tricky in it. Thank you.